Hello and welcome to the CYF course. Today is the last day for Human Development series and we will speak about the teenage years. Many parents fear these teenage years, and when you understand what's going on during this time, it's much more interesting, and if you react well, you can be more relaxed. Adolescence is like a bridge between childhood and adulthood. It's a time of great adventure, and yes, parents will need a lot of energy. But we have to keep a positive outlook on teenagers. It's a time when emotions vary a lot. While emotions have been put aside a little by all the activities during the previous 6 years, they come back in full force at this stage. Boys and girls go through these emotional variations, and they need to learn how to manage them. The stages of childhood are recycled, and that's the good news. God gives parents and the children and teenagers a second chance before the child leaves home. And that's the great news. For all the issues of the previous stages come back. God knew that we wouldn't have understood everything the first time, and He gives children and their parents a second chance to deal properly with issues that were mismanaged before. So the 12 to 13 years old go through the 0 to 18 months again. The 14 years old go through the 2 years old stage again. The 15 years old go through the 3 years old stage again. And if we misinterpret what is going on, we can wreak great havoc. Teenagers are not as mature as they seem to be. The young teenager is in a period of transition and he needs to take responsibility gradually. If parents let the teen take charge of his life in one day, it's like asking a frequent passenger to become the pilot of the airplane from one day to the next. So it's a process and we need to release them in responsibility gradually. Teenagers, they need direction and parenting framework. They still need boundaries. Because young people don't say it, they don't realize it, but deep down, they know they need protective boundaries. Maybe they don't like you too much during those years, but they will be grateful later. They don't need their parents to be their buddies. Limits are protective limits, not restrictive. For example, you give them a set time to come home, because bad things happen mostly late at night. Teenagers, they don't have enough emotional maturity and life experience to see the danger. They think they are mature and they know, but not yet. During these teenage years, the brain goes through another stage of growth, and part of the brain between the ages of 10 and 20 is working on new neurological connections. And if some connections weren't made at a young age, they may be made during this time. For instance, children with dyslexia will see the problem go away during this period because the brain is finally making the necessary connections. God gives a second chance. And this is so redemptive to see the teenage years like that. It is the part of the brain that regulates emotions, determines the right decisions to be made, recognizes and solves problems, takes responsibility, organizes times, sets priorities for tasks to be accomplished, manages the balance between tasks to be accomplished and social life. This is this part of the brain that is making all these connections. That's why the teenager forgets about household chores, but not his appointments with his friends. It's easy to believe that the teenager is irresponsible, but in fact, his brain is in the making. His brain is very busy making all these connections. So he forgets about some things, but not about others. For teens, friends and parties are a priority because they are highly motivated to do so, because their brain are working on the social side. They need to learn to integrate the social with the responsibilities. So they need the parents' help to set a framework and to help them with responsibilities, to structure priorities and deadlines for the homework, for example, etc. It's important that you share this with your teens. You explain them that their brain is still in the building, and that it's normal for them to forget about things that we tell them, they just don't remember. Teenagers, especially boys, they eat a lot. Because their brains are under construction, they may do strange things. That's no reason to let them do what they want, but to help them structure themselves. So have grace. When they say they don't remember, it's probably true. And it's good to help them remember. So when you give an instruction to your child, make him repeat what you just said to make sure that he heard it and he listened to it and he remembered it. You have to be firm with them and not retreat if you know the limits you are giving are right. They have no right to be disrespectful, and if they are, there must be consequences. But they have the right to argue as long as they are respectful. So as I said, teenagers go through developmental stages again. Between 12 and 13 years old, they go back to the 0 to 18 months, learning to be and to explore. This is where the teen begins to have baby attitudes, closeness to the mother, etc. If the symbiosis has not been broken, the teen will want the mother to take care of him too much. He behaves like a baby. He sleeps a lot, he cries a lot, he eats a lot, but he does not want to be treated like a baby. He likes to use his mouth. There is like an overstimulation of the mouth. So he makes noise with his mouth, there is lots of oral activity, talking, chewing gums and all this kind of stuff. And he will say things faster than he thinks. The boy will make noises with his mouth and the girl usually with their gum. The girls talk a lot on the phone, for example. Boys eat a lot and go from one kitchen to the next. Like when he was young, the teenager will explore and make a lot of mess. And a big baby makes a big mess. His room especially is going to be his territory and make a huge mess, and that's normal. And he's very comfortable in that mess because he's exploring and creating again. But still, we can't leave him in this mess, so he has to clean up his room from time to time, like once or twice a week. He has to be taught again what is clean and what is not clean. What is a garbage can and how to use it. What is a dirty laundry basket? What is a vacuum cleaner and how to use it? The mother must not do it for him, even once, because afterward it will be a constant struggle. The teen tries to tie the umbilical cord again. He has to learn how to clean and tidy up. Sometimes teenagers can be very dramatic, and usually girls start earlier in this maturity process than boys. Girls can become teenagers around 12 and 13, even before for some of them. And boys is more like 13, 14, even 15. And it is important to see the behavior, to see what inner age the child is at, so we can support this redemption of the stage of development. Because the steps come back, it is an opportunity to catch up on things that went wrong before. If the child closes on himself, it is also a sign that something is wrong. The teenager communicates verbally, but also through his behavior and his interaction with his parents. This is a signal that helps the parents to see that something is wrong. At 14, he's like going back through the 2 years old stage. So he needs to develop thinking and to learn how to manage his anger. The child will try to make his parents think for him instead of him. So we need to help him analyze every situation, to do it with him and help him to understand by himself, by guiding him to reach a good conclusion. So do not think for him. Do not decide for him. Help children to put God's word into practice and experience his authority and effectiveness. This will make a mark on the children and help them realize that the word is real. The most important example that we can show the teenagers is the authority we have in Jesus. And remember to say it is Jesus, and give him glory when Jesus acts. This will be a testimony through the children too. Teenagers will believe us when they see this in our lives, much more than all the sermons we can give them. This is a time when we need to learn how to deal with anger. And children feel that they don't have the right to be angry sometimes. But Ephesians 4 verse 26 and 27 says, "And don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil." Jesus was angry, but he never sinned. And anger is not a sin. If anger is repressed, it can make you sick. It can make you sin. And a good book to study that is The Other Side of Love from Gary Chapman. It's a book about how to deal with anger in a biblical way. The Other Side of Love. There are 3 limits when you are angry. You can't hurt someone with words or an object or violence, physical. You shouldn't break anything, and you shouldn't hurt yourself. When we don't know how to deal with it in a healthy way, we may do it in an unhealthy way. In this case, 3 things you may do with your anger. When you store your anger inside, it's going to explode one day, and you're going to feel really guilty about it. Or you think that you control your anger by keeping it inside, instead of releasing it, and that causes clinical depression or not related to medication. It's anger that flips over. And one can also deny his anger. If you don't learn to recognize an emotion and let it out, it's gonna be destructive. What you need to do when you are angry, you need to acknowledge your anger. You have to express it verbally to release the energy that rises from that anger. Do something physical to get that energy out when it is strong. So go to the box training room, or go to run around the lake. Do something to release this energy. Then, when the anger comes down to a manageable level, tell the Lord about it. Explain everything to Him and ask Him for His perspective and analyze the thing with Him. Then go to the person you are angry with and try to reconcile following the biblical method. And we find this process in Matthew 18, verse 15 to 17. If another believer sins against you, go privately and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. But if you are unsuccessful, take 1 or 2 others with you and go back again, so that everything you say may be confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses. If the person still refuses to listen, take your case to the church. Then, if he or she won't accept the church decision, treat that person as a pagan or a corrupt tax collector. If the person doesn't want to reconcile, pray for the person, forgive him or her, and let go. Give the person to the Lord. And don't keep hurts and offense in your heart. After going through these different steps, you are set free, released, and the Lord will take care of that person. So don't get attached to it and let it go. Another good book about that is John Bevere's Offense, Satan's Hidden Weapon. I really recommend it. God has given us anger with a positive purpose because it gives us the energy to deal with the problem if we manage anger properly. And if anger is not managed properly, it can deteriorate and really become rage, like with the 2-year-old. And rage looks like violent anger, but it is not anger, it's more than anger. Rage is rooted in the notion of survival and occurs when a person's need or will is not taken into account and puts their life in danger. It comes on suddenly and is out of control. With rage, one must receive healing from the cause of the rage and drive away the spirit of rage. Otherwise, anger is related to a mindset, something that irritates, it builds up little by little in our lives. So this is the age where the teen needs to learn how to deal with anger. And as parents, maybe this is still something you need to redeem yourself in your own life too. We need to learn to manage anger positively. At 12, 13 years old, children begin to be interested in sexuality. Parents need to talk to their child about these things, naturally, because the child's interest is normal. They are experiencing a change in their body, in their hormones. He has questions about these things and he is very sensitive to his body and teasing about these changes. He needs to not draw attention to these changes. If we can understand the pressure that these young people feel during this period, we realize why they have explosive behaviors. Their bodies are changing. Their brains are in the works. School is getting harder and harder. There's more expectation at home. They need to look cool around their friends. They are sometimes overwhelmed and live too much, experience too much. They don't want to be unpleasant, but one little thing can make things go too far. And sometimes they just explode and we don't know why. But it's just the little drop that is making everything spill out. They experience a lot of pressure and insecurities. And parents must start the conversation about sexuality, or the child will do his own research and find a lot of perversion and pornography that perverts his perception of sexuality from the beginning and destroy the sexual intimacy he will have in his relationships later. The parents need to know what he hears in school about this, and the child needs to know the biblical truth so that there is balance. The Lord wants to protect us from destructive things, and He allows us to discover the beauty of what He has created. God has not set limits to prevent us from enjoying ourselves, but to protect us and allow us to live the most extravagant sexual experience possible. And this can be done when perversion has not stained the perception of sexuality. Because pornography will destroy the intimate relationship, as it is a visual adultery, as the Lord said in Matthew 5:28. But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If the young person understands that God puts limits because He loves us, it will help him to remain a virgin until marriage. If the parents are open and ready to listen to the young person, he will be less rebellious. If the parents control too much, not setting sensible limits, but controlling the young person by imposing your thoughts, your ways of doing things, etc., the young person will be even more rebellious. The young person or the child is not the parent. He needs the freedom to be who God created him to be, and not to become as the parents want. The young person will challenge the values of the family. He wants to know what the parents really believe, to the point that they are ready to fight for these values. The young person tests to know the value of things with rebellion, not to rebel for free, but to know the depth of our convictions. For example, the young person who doesn't want to go to church is tired because he went out late on Saturday night. The father tells him he can sleep this morning, but next week he won't go out to make sure he will be fit to go to church. So the young man realized that he will lose his right to go out and will get dressed to go to church with his parents. The young person doesn't have to like what is asked of him, but to do it. The fact that he is in the presence of God is already something, and the Lord can touch his heart afterwards, even if he is grumbling. One of the biggest mistakes of parents is to tell their youngster at this age that he chooses whether he wants to go to church or not for fear of turning the child against God. But the child will see that it is not important to go to church. So think through that. As long as the child lives in the home of the parents, he must submit to the rules of the family, and it is the responsibility of the parents to maintain these standards. To share and live with him that worshipping and serving God is the most important. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older they will not leave it." The young person learns by our way of life. And if the young person is fighting very hard with his parents, a strong rebellion is here. We must look at the relationship with the parents and what has been broken in that relationship before in the previous stages. So go back through the different stages and see which issue the Lord is pointing out. There is a broken trust that needs to be healed and restored. At 15 years old, the teenager goes through the 3 to 5 years old stage again, and this is a stage of identity. After 14 years, he re-established the social contract, learning to live in cooperation with others, considering others and their feelings, etc. He was able to live in the community and to be part of it. The young person now asks himself a lot of questions. Who am I? What is my life? Whereas it was difficult at 14, the young person is now easier and more enjoyable again. He's curious to know the history of the parents. There is no need to tell about the big mistake the parents made, because the young person will think he has the right to do the same thing. He wants to talk and share a lot and spend a lot of time with the parents during this age. Daughters get closer to their father and need their father to tell them that he loves them and that they are beautiful, their new clothes are beautiful, etc. To give them the message that people need to respect her, and she's precious, and she needs to be treated well by others. The father needs to be a role model in the way he treats his wife. Explain to the girl how she should let men treat her and not treat her. When a young girl receives the affection of her father, she will be less likely to seek it from other men. So parents need to see their young people as young adults, affirming their responsibilities. If parents encourage their son to grow up and affirm their progress in maturity, he will feel free to grow up. No son wants to hurt his mother, and if the mother shows that she appreciates him and becoming a man, the young person feels free and encouraged to take responsibility as a man. To give a clear message to the young man who is going to go out with the girl, he will have an interview with the father who will set conditions. If not, no going out. The interview is done informally during quiet discussions. It helps to get to know other people, friends of our young people, by having them at home for meals, etc. If a young man is aware of how precious the daughter is in the eyes of her father, he will not do anything with her, and as a result he will see the value of the daughter herself while the father values his daughter and protects her. The guy is going to have more respect for the girl. It's better to wait before letting the young people go out as a couple. It's better for them to go out in a group because they meet more people and have more fun. Between 16 to 30 years old, they are going through the 6 to 12 years old and they develop their skills, their capacities. And 30 years old is a key stage. At the age of 30, the priest could serve in the temple. Jesus started his ministry at 30. King David became king at 30. And the 30 is an age linked with maturity. Let's not lose the fun and learning aspect after the age of 30. But now, the young person takes more and more responsibility for his own life. Parents have to let go more and more as they see the young person is mature and capable of taking his responsibilities. The young person must also learn household chores so that he can take full responsibility for himself without having to bring back dirty laundry to mom. Young people leave and come back home several times during this period. Maybe they go to study and after they come back, and after they go for a trip around the world and they come back, and they go to DTS and they come back. And this is really around after the age of 30 that it is good for the young person to have their own life and accommodation separated for good, and the parents' house is only there to shelter them occasionally. If possible, when the children leave home, the parents should bless them so that they will be released to serve God. The blessing shows the parents' understanding of the management of the child's life that God has entrusted to them. The parents put the child back into God's hands. The parents become consultants, counselors, but no longer pilots. The parents have to settle the things of which they are aware, release the child from parental expectations, ask for forgiveness for conscious failure, etc. The parents have to be able to solve the things of which they are aware. This will enable the young person to live a good relationship with the parents, because he knows what he will have the freedom to come and go. Let's go again through the steps towards healing and restoration. Scan them with the Holy Spirit and open your heart to whatever needs to be put back to the surface, to the light, and let the Father touch you in these memories and show you how he was here and how he wanted this to happen in your own life, and receive revelation on how the Father has been with you during this time. You can also pray for one another, and after that, as usual, I will put a few questions for you to share and process this information. May the Lord bless you.